Welcome to Travel Devil. I'm your host Clara Francken, and in a world full of mass tourism, we're here to talk about unconventional travel. Let's get into it. Traveling to every continent of the world sounds wild to me. But imagine doing so to reach the highest mountain summits for each continent, human-powered, without any engines. Jelle Veyt is doing it all. He's the first person rowing from Java to Papua. His goal is to row and sail 12,000 kilometers and cycle 70,000 kilometers. Jelle started his journey in 2013 and is still going strong. In this episode, we're talking about his journey in Oceania on the rowing boat to Papua. His journey can inspire us all to travel differently and that anything is possible. Could you introduce yourself? So give me your name, tell me where you're from, and explain to me what you do in life besides traveling.
So I'm Jelle Veyt. I'm from Dendermonde, Belgium, and I'm 34 years old, and I'm actually a physiotherapist. That's my main job, and besides that, I'm semi-professional adventurer.
Okay, and what is for you the ultimate way of traveling?
For me, my ultimate way is doing things human-powered. It means that I'm not using an engine. There's different reasons for it, but that's for me the main, or the ultimate way of traveling is just doing it human-powered.
And could you explain shortly why that is? Why do you think it's important to travel like this?
Yeah, first of all, the environmental aspect. That's one thing. The other one is because I just love doing sports all my life already. So that's another motivation for me. And the other one is actually, and I think that's the most important one, you travel very slowly. And if I'm with a bicycle, I see the country. Like if you would do with a car, you will see the country as well. But on the other hand, I feel the country much more. I feel when it goes uphill, when it goes downhill. I smell everything. I see colors a lot more. And I have a lot of interaction with my environment. So when I see people around, I can talk to them. And when you're in a car, you're less likely to do that because you go from one city to the other. And now when I'm traveling on my own powers, I go from village to village.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Which problem do you think that other people face when they travel that you can resolve with the way you travel?
I think it's one of the things, and I've seen it as well before, about people traveling with a car. They tend to be a bit more afraid or suspicious about things. If you're with a bicycle or in a rowboat or anything, you're very dependent on the people around you. So if you don't feel very secure somewhere, you just can't jump in a car or anywhere else and go away. You need to be there. You need to trust those people and you need to interact with them in a different way because there's no escape route. You just have to do it. And actually, because of doing that, you feel and you experience that it's just amazing everywhere you go. So there's no problem in it. But that makes a big difference.
So you think other people have this issue way more than you do?
Yeah, indeed. I have more trust in people than maybe people who will go fast by car or by flight or anything.
Yeah. So let's talk about your Human Powered project. Could you briefly explain the project and your goal?
Yeah, I'm going to every continent and I want to climb the highest mountain on this continent. But I go there human-powered, so that means that I don't use any engine. And when there's land, I cycle most of the time or I walk. And when there's sea or rivers, I cross them by rowboat or kayak. So it means that it just, already 7 years and I'm just over halfway now.
Crazy. Do you do this completely alone or do you also have other people traveling with you?
The first part I did completely alone. I cycled to Nepal to climb Everest. But the thing is that, I always ask people or tell people, you can come along. But most of them, they have different things in life. So that's okay. But some of them think it's just too crazy to go for it. But there are parts that I have people with me. Sometimes people join me for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. And that's always a lot more fun, actually.
And so what is your goal? Your goal is mainly to go to the top of these mountains, or do you have another goal besides that?
Yeah, I like to have a goal. And so that's why these top of the mountains, but it's not about climbing the mountain, or it's not about being on the summit of it. It's mainly because of getting there. And that's how I get there. That's for me very important. If they would bring me by helicopter to the summit of this mountain, I would not enjoy it. I will not appreciate the moment of standing there that much. And compared to when I have done so much effort to get there human powered. So that's actually my main goal, to get every continent done, but do it human powered. But it's not about reaching the summit. It's actually about the whole journey, about everything.
And focusing a bit on rowing and kayaking, well, why did you choose rowing and kayaking and not another way to get over the water?
Yeah, so first I thought maybe I could sail, but then there's the wind factor involved, and it's still a good way. But for me, it was like, yeah, I want to have a bit of the physical challenge, even more than sailing, which is not easy as well. And then I just heard about rowing, that it would be more efficient than kayaking. So for the bigger stretches, I use the rowing. If it's smaller, I can use a kayak because it's much lighter to carry, or to it's more easy for the logistics about that. So, and then, yeah, the rowing, it's a very efficient movement, and it's very good to be on the sea because the boat can be lots more stable, especially for safety. Because it's not always very safe what you're doing, so you just want to increase your chances of not having accidents or things like that. Yeah.
And do you think rowing and kayaking can also create new opportunities for traveling for other people?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Because actually, for me, I always have been cycling in my life, and I just love to go cycling, and it gave me a lot of feeling of being free. And then I discovered that when I park my bike somewhere and I go hike these mountains that I see when I'm cycling, then it gives me more freedom. And that's now the same with the boat as well. When suddenly there would be a sea, for example, I can actually extend this feeling of freedom. I think it can be for a lot of people as well, very interesting to do it. It's just a very difficult part. But I think there's so many opportunities for people that they haven't discovered yet.
Yeah, and why do you think it's so difficult?
Mainly for rowing, it's the technique. It's a bit more technical. For kayak, it's a bit more okay. You can go to river, you can start to kayak, but with a rowboat, that's a different thing. You need to get to know the rowing a bit more. But still, yet I know people who actually never rowed in their life and crossed the ocean by rowing. So you you just need to have the right mindset, I think.
Crazy. So what did you do to prepare for these trips?
For rowing, for example, I rowed from Java to Papua. That was about 4,000 kilometers of rowing. It took me 6 months. And the preparation was as well 6 months or more. It's just the biggest difficulty there was that nobody ever did that. So you can't find any information or not anything easily to know how you have to deal with everything, with the waves, with the weather, with the islands passing by. And so that's why it took a lot of effort and a lot of preparation. It wasn't that easy to just like say, oh yeah, let's row. At first I thought to do that, but luckily I changed my mind.
And what was something you didn't expect that you needed to prepare for?
First of all, equipment. I first thought about ordering some kind of package online and then build a boat in Java myself from some wood. And then I discovered that it wasn't a good idea. And a friend actually, he made a boat. He's a boat builder for rowboats, only for the sea. I must say that has been a big advantage because, yeah, being on seas is a very tricky thing. Especially if you're in areas that are not very explored, then you need to know or guess, and then it starts to become difficult. And experience is a big factor, and I didn't have any experience. And that's why a friend of mine with a lot of experience came with me in the first month.
So he came with you all the way?
No. I think in total it took me 6 months, something like that. In 4 months, some people came along with me. So that was a logistical hassle as well to get those people there, because some of the islands they're uninhabited, some of the others there's not so much. So to get some people there to be able to join me was not that easy. But yeah, after a while, you get some experience and you find a way. Huh?
So, if you would take me mentally with you from one way to the other, you were always going over the water for several days, then you went to an island, or how did that go?
It mainly was island hopping. So you just go from island to island, you follow the coastline. I think the biggest crossing I did was 120 kilometer, was 35 hours of rowing, but that's not stop. You just don't sleep. And sometimes you just sleep on the boat on other crossings. But the biggest difficulty there is when you're close to land, you're more in danger than being out of the open ocean, because there's wave crashing onto the land. There can be some rocks, very big currents. And then, because of that, I had to be extremely careful. And that made the most difficult part of it.
So if it's stones, you cannot sleep there?
It's more tricky. So when there's rocks, especially when there's big waves coming in, then we just don't go. If it's not too much waves, okay, it doesn't matter that much. But if it's too much waves, you just need to find a way, because on island it's not like the Belgian shoreline. It's just a line, and it's there's a lot of bays and things like that. So you really need to find a well-protected area to be able to go. Maybe tie your boat to a tree, leave it on the water, and swim to shore. Things like that. We all as well had to do sometimes.
Okay, crazy. Could you give me some tips and hacks for people who want to travel like this? Maybe not as extreme, or maybe they do want to travel like this.
And I have a friend who was in the military once, and he always told me you can never have too many socks with you. And I totally agree. It's not when you go to the tropical areas, it's not a big problem. But I mean, if you go to other areas, it's always good to have enough socks. It seems silly, but when I always remembered, and I'm very grateful that he once told me, because it can make a really big difference, because you need your feet to move. And once you start to get blisters or anything else, your socks are wet and your skin gets broken, then you start to have problems. So that's actually a very important thing that I always have on my adventures, is an extra pair of dry socks. Another thing is, for me, what I love to do, and I think it's very important as well, is try to learn some local language. Even like now, I'm just from Africa. Most people speak French or English, and it depends which country you are going. But they all have their own language as well. And I always try to learn their local words to say hello and thank you and all these little things, because immediately people appreciate your doing effort, and you create a much better connection to those people. So that's something that I always try to do, is even just a couple of words, and they always think it's fun, and you can have some fun with them. They teach you some new words, and that creates a very good atmosphere when you arrive in a village,
Yeah, I always say that languages open doors. That's really important. And do you actually have some tips on safety?
If you're rowing or going out on sea, preparation is the most important thing. Always look at the weather. And if that's another friend of mine that's told me as well, if you're in doubt to go on the water, don't go. Because it means that there's something wrong probably. And don't take the risk, because the ocean, it can be extremely unforgiving. If you stop rowing, you go somewhere else and you don't know where you're going, because the sea is always moving. So if you are in doubt about weather or yourself or your equipment, don't go out on the sea. And that's a very important thing for your safety. And I do the same in the mountains. So I always calculate the risk that I have to take and what I can gain from it. And if it's negative, then I just need to wait. And as you're going into adventures, you need a lot of patience. And I think an adventure with not too much time, it doesn't live too long, maybe, because it's you need patience a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's always important to listen to your gut feeling. How did you actually find places to sleep? How did you actually find places to sleep? Because I guess there's no internet and a map gets wet, I guess. I don't know so much about how this works.
I mainly slept on the beaches of the islands. And that took a lot of preparation on Google Earth, actually, just because of the satellite images. I could see where there was some beach. On others, I could see maybe there's some rock, and then it gives some opportunities to say, oh yeah, I can go to this beach because it's probably sand. And when you're there, you can still look if it's sand or not, and then you know you can sleep there. I took some courses as well to go on the ocean, to be able to navigate. Another thing is, you have a compass, you have your paper maps, you have the nautical maps. It's a specific kind of maps. You really need things like that. You need some pilot books. It means that there's some tables in there, how the tides are gonna be, how the currents are gonna be. Which in the area there was not too much information. But if you row in Europe, you will find a lot of it. I used the navigation as well with a solar panel. And then still I have some kind of, it's a kind of satellite tracker. So people can follow me back home, and it's with a satellite signal. So nowadays, the most popular one is a spot tracker, but I'm mainly using a Garmin one because it's a different satellite signal, but it's all the same. So, and with that, people can send you messages. And from there, I got every day an update how the weather was going to be from a friend back home.
So it's a satellite, like a phone? How does that work?
It's kind of a satellite phone, but a satellite phone is very expensive. A satellite tracker is less expensive. It can be costly. It's maybe 200-300 euros, and you need a subscription, but it just sends data. So let's say every 10 minutes, it sends a GPS coordinate to a satellite. And this one sends it back to a server, and people can watch you online if you want to. You don't have to do that. But then they can watch you every 10 minutes where you are at that moment. And you can see your coordinates yourself and then plot them on a chart. And you know where you are. There's as well an emergency button on it. So if you just press the SOS button, emergency services will be contacted, your contacts in the device as well, so they can start to do a search and rescue operation for you. Because if you suddenly capsize, you need to be able to press something like that because they need to be able to find you. And at the same time, you can send emails and short messages with the device, mainly for some information like the weather updates and how the waves are going to be, how the wind will be in the next coming days. And that makes it actually, it's a very valuable thing, especially when you go on the sea, because you don't have internet there. So.
Okay. And food-wise, how do you do that?
For the crossing I did from Java to Papua, I did a lot of preparation to even look on the map where on the satellite, I just zoomed in so much to see if there would be houses on every small island. And some of them, they don't have anything. Others, they have some houses. And then I knew there I will be able to find food. So I always had food for me for, let's say, 5 to 6 days. I could survive, food and water. Because sometimes you don't see people for a couple of days. If next year I will cross the ocean from Portugal to Miami, it's about 2 months on the ocean, and then you just have the freeze-dried food. So it's just the bags with some dust, and you pour some hot water, and you have a spaghetti, things like that, and that you eat something like that for 2 months, and you try to catch some fish once in a while. You just throw out a hook and you hope some fish takes it, but that's it.
You never had a bad experience with a bigger fish?
No, not yet. I've seen some sharks and things that a fisherman took a shark in one of his. So the shark took one of his hooks, but then they dragged it to the beach, and then that was a small island. They actually killed it and ate it. But it was a small shark, but still, it was very sad to see.
Yeah, but I can imagine if you have a shark on your hook and you're in a rowing boat, it's not dangerous for the shark, it's dangerous for you maybe.
So actually, when we were rowing, there were two friends on my boat, and one of them, he brought bait that was this big.
Brief edit for our listeners: imagine a bait the size of a hand.
It looks like a fish, and there's all hooks attached to it. And I said, yeah, we can try to fish, but something that eats a fish like that, if you have that attached to your boat, it can be dangerous. So you need to be ready with a knife to cut the wire if anything happens, because it can capsize your boat, something like that. Yeah.
Could you give me an overview of everything you took along on your rowing boat?
For my boat from Java to Papua, I had like hammocks with mosquito nets. There was a big box that was waterproof, and that was full of some food, things to repair the boat, which is important because if you hit some rock, you need to be able to repair it. A cooking stove, which is a multi-fuel one. So if you just find gasoline, you can cook. Some cooking pots, some spare clothes, camera, and then safety equipment. So life jackets, but they're auto-inflatable, so they're not too big because if you're rowing, it's otherwise in the way. GPS, like I think I had 3 devices for my safety, like the satellite tracker. Then it's like a kind of an EPIRB that's similar. And then as well the radio to be able to contact other boats and ships. And then to charge all these things, I had a solar panel with me. It's actually basically, let's say, things to sleep, to eat, and then safety equipment and a medical kit.
Okay. How much do you think is the cost of such a trip if you would count it to day-to-day basis or in total?
Cycling is cheap. Cycling you can do, I know people who do it for €5 a day in Southeast Asia, up to 15. Because for Africa, I know people who do that on €7 a day in Africa, but that's actually really, I mean, on average, it's quite low. If you do €10 a day, you can do fine. And if you cycle 100 days, you have spent €1,000, so it's not a lot of money. Rowing is more expensive. To get the boat there is already the shipment. It's maybe €10,000 to ship the boat back and to there and back. So it's always more expensive to do the rowing part. Depends where you are. If you want to do something in Europe like that, it's not going to cost that much money. You can always find some people. You can rent a boat or borrow a boat. But the biggest thing for me, the biggest expense to bring the boat from Belgium to Indonesia, that was a shipment. And so from there, once you have your equipment there, it costed me less than €7 a day when I was in Indonesia, just because you always sleep on an island and you just have some local food, so you never spend a lot of money then.
Okay, and now a question I'm really curious to hear your answer to. Could you share your strongest travel story whilst on that road? One where you thought like, wow, I'm really doing this?
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of them. But it's I had several moments, for example, when I was rowing alone, and there's certain moments that there was nothing I could see except water. And then I had some music on my speaker, and then you're there in the middle of the ocean on your own. And just the feeling that you have there was crazy. You look around, you hear this music. It made me very emotional because I'm very aware of the situation I was in and how lucky I could be to be there. Because then I remember hearing the music, and then you see like in the distance, and they're coming closer like a group of dolphins, and they jump up from the water. And those are very magical moments that you see, and actually most people never get to see or experience something in their lives, and then you appreciate that you can be there, and that's just amazing to have that feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine. I had 2 closing questions. So what would you tell me to try to convince me to travel with a rowing boat? Yeah, pep talk me in.
First of all, I would tell you it's gonna be hard. That's the first thing. That's something you need to know when you go on the sea. It's gonna be hard, but it's gonna be totally worth it when you're doing it. So and that's always something, like if you work hard for something and then you achieve it, it's so worth it. And that's the same with that. The things you see, you experience there, is gonna be hard at first, but after a while, you're gonna say like, damn, this is amazing, because there's no car, there's not a lot of things that can do what you're doing right now. And that means you get a very special opportunity to be visiting places that maybe just a few people from all the world have visited. And I've been to islands where nobody lives and you sleep there and you're just relaxing after a day of rowing. I brought a snorkel and then you do some snorkeling under the boat. You row again, and yeah, it's completely worth it doing that.
Oh man, hearing that already gives me chills. Could you give me and my listeners a challenge to start our own adventure? Something possible for a beginner.
If it's cycling, I would just say go out and cycle. Pick something in your mind that you think this seems too far, or this is a place I would like to visit one day. And then just take your bicycle, your tent, some equipment, and just do that. And don't think about it. Because if you're cycling, you don't need to be extremely well prepared. If you go on the ocean, you should be prepared, but you can always as well, for example, if you live in Belgium, cross the English Channel. That's a really good challenge. That's about 12 hours of rowing, I think. And that's already a good idea to know how things go. Even what we do with the rowing club every year, we cross the Belgian coastline from the French side to the Dutch side in 2 days. And that's a really nice challenge. It gives you a lot of new ideas and how it feels. And a lot of people who do that for the first time, they actually discover how fun it is. And they see, for example, the sea life, because a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of seals and dolphins actually in the Belgian Sea. So
cool. I also didn't know there's dolphins to see.
It's actually brownfish, but it's kind of a dolphin. So you can see them jump up sometimes. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we come to the end now. So these are very short questions. So I'm going to start. How old are you?
34.
How old were you the first time you traveled to another continent?
27.
What's the longest time you've been away from home?
1 year.
Would you rather see a lot of places or get to know one really well?
That's a difficult one. I would go for the first one then, maybe to see a lot of places, but yeah, it's difficult.
Would you rather save money on accommodation or pay for a good bed?
Save money for accommodation.
What word would you teach a foreigner who wants to learn your language?
I would just say merci in this language.
Okay. What can't you travel without?
Personal things that people gave me, like letters or pictures.
What's your favorite travel song?
It's been a while. Follow the Sun from Xavier Rudd, but they've used it in a commercial, so I don't like it too much anymore.
Why do you travel?
To experience the world, but from an extremely different point of view, and to discover a lot about the world, but as well about myself and my own world. I learned to open up to a world, and because of that, the world opened up to me. Yeah.
This interview was originally filmed for a YouTube video on my channel in 2020. These are the current milestones Jelle achieved: Elbrus, Everest, Karstenens Pyramids, and the Kilimanjaro. Besides that, he cycled, rode and sailed over 80,000 kilometers. And if you want to send him words of kindness and support, feel free to send Jelle a message via his GPS tracker. I will put all the links down in the show notes. This was Travel Devil, brought to you by me, your host, Clara Francken. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to continue the conversation or suggest any future guest, you can go to my Instagram @ClaraFrancken. Take care, and I will see you next Thursday.